Welcome to the Passionate Pioneer podcast. Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm passionate about supporting women who are feeling disillusioned and disappointed with their career and showing them what is possible when you follow your passion. Having your voice heard, finding your tribe of like minds, and being able to get support is so important when you don't know where to turn or who to talk to. I transformed my life from the corporate world to the coaching world, and I now empower women to follow my example and claim the freedom of choice to follow their heart, soul, and passion. So let's get started. Today I am joined by Synthia Campbell, who is currently in social housing as a contracts manager working for a local government, but frustrated with her job and longing to follow her passion, which is to provide counselling and support that help people reconnect with themselves. This includes running retreats at her base in Portugal. Welcome, Synthia.
Thank you, Beth.
So I'm really happy that you reached out to me. And I've had so many amazing women reach out to me for an interview. Some who are already half in and half out the door of corporate, and some already left. So you're a situation where you're half in and half out, aren't you? So tell us a little bit about about your job, what you're doing, and why it's so bloody frustrating.
Okay, so yeah, I've been in social housing for the best part of 30 years. I'm a contracts manager, so really it's dealing with social housing accommodation and really making sure that the contractors that do the work do it properly, do it to budget, have certain values, etc., etc. So that's really the main bulk of it, while also managing a team of surveyors that go out and do the inspections. Right. So it's quite full on.
And you trained as a surveyor, yes?
I am, yep, I am.
How did you move from that then? How did you move from surveying into the social housing? Was that a step towards your passion?
No, not at all. Well, my passion I thought at the time was building and construction. So I moved from, if you like, surveying and having a look at it to stepping up to a senior surveyor and then having surveyors report to me. They go out and do the looking and the telling. Right. So as far as career progression went, yes, right. It was.
You were following the career progression, climbing the corporate ladder, right? Yes.
Indeed. Yes.
So then what's happening in your career at the moment? Tell me about all the stuff that you're frustrated with, because I've heard many horror stories, and I have my own. So tell us yours.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's definitely a very male-dominated career path when you start looking at surveying and buildings, and so I'm used to, if you like, being, I suppose, overlooked and undervalued at work. Yes,
that sounds familiar.
Yes, and there are very few women in that profession as well. There's not as many as I think there should be, but there are very few women, and they don't tend to get promoted regardless of their merit. So I find myself in a position that as a surveyor, I'm often more qualified than my line managers or the senior staff above me. And also I've got the experience, but I wouldn't say old boys network, but old boys network.
I'd exactly say old boys network, because why are you being overlooked and undermined when you're more qualified, you have more experience? Why is it, do you think, that you're being overlooked? It's probably exactly that. It's the old boys, masculine mentality, yes?
Absolutely. And I think coupled with female in that, and I'm not a big advocate for race, but that also played a part in it as well.
I'm sure.
A part in it as a Black female. And I even got asked by quite a senior manager, or told, I should say, that I should feel very proud of myself to be in this position. And I had to ask him, what does he mean by that?
What do you mean? I've worked really hard. I've done my due diligence. Thank you very much. What do you mean? I should be
Yeah,
that's very condescending, isn't it?
absolutely. And I think, this happened probably 6 years ago, and I was quite stunned. I thought we'd moved on from that, but clearly
No.
it doesn't move on. But I
No.
think the biggest frustrations is the amount of responsibility that is put on a contract manager or a senior surveyor around compliance and things like that, and legislation that has to be right. And we found ourselves in a situation where the HSE, we'd fallen foul of the HSE, the Housing Health and Safety Executive, who were coming to interview us. They phoned me directly and said, we're coming out, I want to see you. And I said, do you need to speak to the health and safety team? Should I advise them? And they categorically said no. And I've gone to a meeting with my superiors to say, this is what they've said. And they said, no, they don't want any of you in there. And they said, well, you'll just take this person with you and just say that they're a surveyor. And I think that was the crux for me, because at that point I said, you're not asking me to lie, are you? Because I won't lie.
Right.
And they said, no, we're not asking you to. And I said, well, it sounds like that. And I think that was probably the beginning of the end for me.
Right. The straw that broke the camel's back.
Definitely. I thought, no, I can't do that. And these are things that I could find myself, foul of the law and probably imprisoned because of the things that, that had been going on. And I wasn't willing to do that. And when you're in a room full of director, executive director, and all men saying this is what's happening, but I had to stand my ground.
Yeah, so they were trying to use you as a patsy, right?
Yeah, and I just wouldn't have that.
So have you seen that? Have you seen the decline in governments, in the corporate world? Have you seen a decline in like the working environment and how I think we're just numbers. It used to be a lot better. Well, it started out obviously as a man's world, right? This is how the corporations started, and then we brought women into the corporate world, and then we had the more of the women's rights movement, 60s, 70s, kind of got better, and then there's been a decline as far as I can see, talking to women, and my own experience is there's just been a decline in working conditions. Would you agree?
I think there is, and not just confined to my sector. I think across the board, you are expected to give not just 1 pound of flesh, but probably 10 pounds of flesh. I don't think it matters where you are situated, in the caring industry and the hospitality, wherever it is, there is this expectation that you will give blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, you give everything, right? You basically give your heart, your life, don't you? Your heart and soul.
Yeah. And I saw that when I was probably, you can imagine I'm looking after, or I'm responsible for over 16,000 homes, and people are day and night, phoning, things breaking houses, and it's that constant. But I was in at 7 a.m, and I wasn't leaving until 9 o'clock at night. And so I lived about an hour away, so I wasn't getting home till 10 o'clock. And probably 4 years into that, I found myself in a position where I had such extreme pain in my leg. I thought something was wrong with my leg. It turned out to be sciatica, but it was so severe. I was off for 6 months.
Wow.
And I thought I'd never walk again. It was that bad. And in that time, what surprised me is they couldn't replace me fully. So what they did is they gave out my work to about 8 different managers.
Oh my Lord.
And I thought, I'm doing a lot more than other managers. I'm working every hour God sends. And, I don't know how my family put up with me, because I missed many a occasion.
Celebrations and birthdays. Yeah. Yeah.
because of this constant,
Because you're dedicated and you were loyal, right?
yeah, and you want to provide a good service. I think,
Yeah.
if you're going to do a job, do it well,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's been a total breakdown in the system. And from what speaking to other women, they seem to say that, well, I know this to be true, that men do less work for more money. And
Absolutely. I have to say absolutely with that, because I had only male superiors, and every boss I got in would be the same thing. Everything would be poured down to me. And that's how I got myself working till, 9 at night, trying to get everything done. But even with, all the best energy and the best intentions, you are never going to get it all done every day. So
it's a big thing, isn't it? One of the questions I ask in on this podcast is, how do you take care of yourself? Where does self-care come in when you're working so many hours, and you're dedicated and you're loyal and you think you're doing the right thing, so you sacrifice yourself? You talked about your health. You talked about your sciatica. So how do you think how do you think women in corporate careers manage to take care of themselves, or don't they?
I think it's a matter for me, certainly. I thought taking care of myself was getting to work, on time, being the best that I could be and do, and trying to climb the ladder. I think the sciatica, as terrible as it was probably the best thing ever, because
Right.
it was a wake-up call, and it was
Right.
like, hang on, you need to pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see, because we are on the back foot, because we are trying to be as good as we can, if not match or exceed, our male counterparts. It does that to us. It makes us not look at anything else, but just focus on this work, not knowing that we're never going to get there if the men are still in charge.
No, absolutely. But do you think, I mean, the way to go is probably not to have more women in the corporate industry, but to be more of I do find there's a lot of masculine energy in the world. This is the way it's been for many years with the corporate, especially in corporate industry. It's a lot of masculine, and that's a lot of do, action, action, action. And the feminine, we need to bring in more. But unfortunately, I've seen a lot of women go into corporate and take on more of the masculine qualities, the aggression, the anger, the directness. There's no softness, right? They lose all their softness, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I didn't like, because I saw myself doing the same thing. And it's a quality that, I was like, okay, there's a lot of I'm just not feeling like I'm being myself and true to myself. I'm having to do things I don't want to do, that go against my values and my beliefs. And I think that's the same for a lot of women in the corporate industry. How did you feel about that? Did you feel that you had to? Well, you'd given us that example of having to lie when you draw the line. You drew the line.
I think for me, it's really one of my. I'm a Christian, and so that's a big thing for me. And I try and walk and live, Christ-like as I can. And at first, I think I probably draw back from that. Oh, I don't want everyone to know, kind of thing.
Right.
But it's come to the point. I don't care who knows. I say it all the time. I'm going to be. This is the life that I choose for myself and the path that I walk. So it becomes easier. I think a lot of swearing in the workplace, where effing this, effing that, and I'll say, hello, that language not appropriate. Whether it's a director or my subordinate, I don't care. I do make that stand. But I think it's feeling, comfortable within yourself.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, and because I think God is bigger than me and all the rest of them, so I'm going to do the right thing. That kind of frees me and gives me the peace that I need to be able to do that.
Right. Well, similar. I'm very spiritual. So I believe in a higher power and the universe, and yeah, this the swearing. Yes, I mean I have been a what do we call it? Sailor, sailor's mouth in the past. But I do dial it back now because I just find that it just brings on more anger sometimes when you swear rather than letting it go or being at peace with it. Yeah, it just brings on more anger and more frustration. Okay, so we talked about your disappointment. So what's the plan? How did you start with these retreats and the training that you're doing now? Tell us about that, because that's really interesting. And how did that start?
Okay, so really to explain that, I have to just go back a few years and say, I'm a Christian. And so what had happened is I kept hearing this word counselor at various times, which I was just like, nah, it's not for me. I do buildings. I'm very black and white, Beth,
Right.
This is a building, this is what's wrong, I can fix it.
Right.
So to hear counsel that involves people and talking to them, and I thought, no. And I left it. And my previous job to the one I'm doing now, I was there for 8 or 9 years, and they were doing a massive restructure. And in this restructure, I had to apply for my job again. And part of applying for my job again is they had split my original role into 3 distinct roles. Yeah.
Right.
And I said, no, I didn't want to. And they said, you have to. And when I went for it at one of the 3 roles, they said, oh, I didn't get it. And I was devastated. I was like, wow, I've been doing this for 8 years. And on the way home, I had a real rant in the car with God. I was like, how did you let this happen? Look what's happened. What am I going to do now? It was terrible. And I just had this quiet peace the next day that I need you to take your redundancy money and invest it. We'd had this house in Portugal for about 10 years. And I just said, invest it and do the conversions. I was like, what? So for 6 months, I was not working. I came over, and it was while the pandemic was on, I managed to get across here. And I was here while the conversion was taking place. And also had started a counselling course, a diploma in pastoral and clinical counselling. And I thought, wow, very nervous, but I said, God, you've got this. And slowly the money went into the project, and then it was all finished, and I hadn't even started. And I said, you said to put all the money in here. 40,000, where is it coming from? And I kid you not, I give glory to God, because guess what happened? £40,000 I got. I didn't ask for it. I didn't look for it. It just was coming in from all over. I didn't borrow a penny. And, and that's why I say, okay, I'm definitely on the right path.
Trust, believe, receive are my three main motto words. Trust, believe, receive. And it is, I love that story about, you kept hearing those little voices, counselling. You're like, where's that coming from? Right. I'm not a counsellor. Right. And I had the same about my coaching and my retreat. The same sort of thing. And I get really excited when I talk about things like this, because I say to people all the time, don't dismiss those words that come to you that seemingly from nowhere, because that is part of what you're here to do, because everybody's unique. Everybody has something different. But if you hear something that seems like it's way out of left field, you're like, what is that? What are you talking about? Well, get out of my head. But that's meant for you, and those are words that are meant for you. And eventually, like I said, if you keep dismissing it, it'll just keep coming back to you. And you'll just get more and more. You'll feel more and more frustrated with your job. You'll feel more unfulfilled. And it's like your calling, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's your calling. And then we also have these little, what I call spiritual turning points, which were, you had a few of them. You had a health scare. It can also happen with grief.
Mm.
It can happen with restructuring of a company and you had to reapply for your job.
Yeah.
It can happen when they make, someone makes you do something that you're very uncomfortable with, like lying and maybe getting prosecuted, right? That's another. They're all little spiritual turning points that just, I like following the breadcrumbs. You just take one step in a different direction, right? In the direction that you're supposed to go. However it feels to everybody else, if it feels right to you, something feels wrong and you want to go in the opposite direction, do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. As we would say, do it afraid. Yeah.
Do it afraid. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're holding retreats. So you've got the Four Winds retreats. So is that what you were preparing for when you went to Portugal to do the in the middle of COVID? Is that what your goal was?
It wasn't so much. Yeah, it was to finish because we've got the main house and then two separate apartments. So it was to get those ready. One was just a total shell. It was a shed.
Right.
So all the money to get it up to standard and to make it a fully functioning 3-bedroom ensuite unit.
Right.
And the same with the one underneath our house. So it was to do that. And also, I think to start to look at the area, I live in the middle of a small farming village,
Right.
but it's so ideal for peace and for tranquility.
Right.
And, just to reconnect with yourself. It's quiet. I think the highlight is 100 sheep a day walking through the village with the little bells. But in that time, it just gives you that time to reconnect. You can walk out, it's safe. And I think it's almost like you've pressed pause. And it was just looking at how I can build the retreats. What will they look like? What type of retreats would I offer?
Nice. Well, I'm the same, Synthia. I live in the top of a mountain in the middle of Italy. And I don't even get sheep. I don't get anybody up here. So, the occasional quad bike comes past, the boys on the quad bikes, but otherwise and the occasional tractor comes by, and that's it. But yes, it's the same. It's about reconnecting, and it's a reconnecting to nature. I think we're really missing that in the cities, and I think we're missing that in our lives. We don't understand this symbiotic relationship we have with nature. The tree huggers had it absolutely right. Go hug a tree, and the energetic relationship is amazing, right? It gives you energy. And I just reconnected when I moved here. I reconnected even more with myself. Yeah. And I'm sure you've done the same. You've got time to reflect in the peace and the tranquility.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think you don't realize how much you need that. When you're caught up in the thick of it and you're just doing autopilot, you're not realizing, actually, I need to just breathe here. I need to be still, and just, appreciate my surroundings, appreciate everything that's going on, and just, reconnect, find myself.
So what type of retreats will you, obviously that's what you're thinking about. Is this going to be for families, for women? Who are your retreats going to be for, and what will you offer?
Yeah, the retreats are aimed at adults, I'd say, not, I don't think it's suitable for under 25s, I would say not.
Okay.
But there are 3 separate retreats that we're offering. One is a prayer retreat, of course.
Nice.
And so it's 3 days of prayer and forest walks, mountain walks, that type of thing, and praying. And then we also kind of helping people that want to pray or want to, I think, have a closer relationship with God, but are a bit like, oh, pray, I can't pray. Right. Or I don't know how to. A lot of people, Christians, I don't know how to. I don't pray in public, but we should be able to, to do that at any time. So one of them is a prayer retreat. Another one is acrylic pouring. And I got into that probably about 7 years ago as just a way to switch off. And I
Nice.
found it really therapeutic. So
Nice.
um, I do acrylic pouring retreats, again, where you learn to reconnect. And it's quite interesting with the acrylic pouring that you think, oh, it's just pouring paint, but it's the whole process. It's the therapy of the stirring, but also afterwards, I'm able to look and see the colors you chose, why you chose those colors. It tells a little story about you.
Right.
Um, yeah, and so that's been really really good.
Well, that
Um,
ties into color therapy, doesn't it, as well? It's
yeah,
creativity and color therapy,
yes,
which has really been proven to work as well.
yeah. And then the last retreat that we offer is a body reboot. So I'm a vegetarian, not quite a vegan because butter is just very much of my
Butter
diet.
and cheese, right? I'm the
I
same.
can't
I
do
can't
that.
resist butter and cheese, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So the body reboot is just gentle stretching and learning about foods to eat, quick, easy, healthy foods that you can do kind of 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And really, I think it's about when you leave here realizing that, oh, I don't have to change everything. It's not scary. You know, well-being can be part of my lifestyle, my everyday lifestyle.
Well, it
So
has to be. I think that's the major change, isn't it? You've got to, self-care and wellness
yeah,
is has to be a priority. We've stopped caring for ourselves. We care more about what other people think and what other people are doing rather
yeah.
than looking at ourselves and taking care of ourselves. I really love that you're doing this prayer retreat, because I do think there's a stigma around, the word God, and I can't pray. I don't know how to meditate, but it's a simple process of just sitting and being,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
just sitting and being, after, gosh, how many years of meditating, I still get noise. I still get voices, and I still get, oh, I've got to go shopping. As soon as I close my eyes, right? As soon as I start closing off, everything comes, oh, I've got to go shopping. I've got to take the car to the garage. I've got to do, and it's just about being in the present moment
yeah,
and coming back to the present moment. And I love that prayer. It's very similar. It's the same, isn't it, as meditating with a purpose.
yeah.
Prayer is with
Absolutely.
purpose, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I really love that you're doing that. So let me ask you about your um, who has influenced you or inspired you. Have you had any other people that have inspired you or empowered you to follow this passion, this new direction in your life?
I think certainly people have my husband. He's been very supportive, I would say. I'm trying to think about inspired I don't think there's been an inspiration other than from God, really, if I'm honest there.
Right.
But certainly there's been a lot of support from my family. They're very supportive about certain elements. My daughter's a bit worried about the art because she's a real artist and acrylic pouring isn't really art. But apart from that, there's been
The
there's been
critics, right?
yeah, they have been supportive. I think it's more a matter of, well, let's see how this is going to work. You know, Mum or Cynthia believes it's going to work, so we won't say anything. We're just waiting to see.
That's
I'm
great.
waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting to see as well, but I know it's going to happen.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just trust, believe, receive, right? Trust, believe, receive is
absolutely.
coming.
Yeah,
That's amazing that you've had so much support, because a lot of the women I've spoken to, and some of my experience as well, you have people that think you're, what are you doing? You're crazy. You're leaving a job. It's going to fail. It will never work. Aren't you afraid? And then you've got other people that are actually in your corner and support you and cheering you on.
mhm.
Have you had more support? More of the support side, it sounds like, which is
I
great.
think, yeah, I think as you were saying in the early days when I said I'm not actually going to look for another job, they were like, "What? Because I suppose that's a normal reaction.
Yeah.
I think if I hadn't had that conversation with God, I probably would have been saying what to myself as well. So I
Right.
think we're so conditioned to, we work for someone, they pay us, this is how it works, and we get the
Yeah.
money, as opposed to actually I can be self-sufficient, I can do this for myself. So I think
Right.
once they'd got over that shock, then the support came.
Yeah. And what has your life experience taught you about what you're really capable of?
Wow. I think really it has to be that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm a lot stronger. I'm more focused on what I want. I probably, would have liked to have done it a lot sooner, I think, now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's the strength that you have, and the purpose that you're doing it with. I think that's been the biggest lesson for me, and that know my worth.
Yeah.
Absolutely know my worth. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think your relationship to God has gotten stronger?
Oh, absolutely. I don't like, I just would not be here with without him. He is my strength. Yeah.
Very good. You know what you said about I would have done it sooner. That's one of the things that comes to my mind sometimes. But everything has a time. Everything has a purpose and a time. And to be honest with you, I wasn't ready for this earlier in my life. I needed more life experience and some more lessons to be learned before I was ready to step into this. So for me, it's perfect timing, and I don't have any. You shouldn't live your life with regrets, so I don't have any regrets. I'm sure you don't either, right?
Absolutely.
But the final question I have for you, which is I have this for all for everyone on the podcast, is what advice would you have for your younger 25-year-old self?
It probably, I think, would be along the lines of, trust your instincts, trust, what you're thinking and feeling, and plan. Keep planning for the future. Look at it. Don't sit in a box and just think, well, this is it. There's a whole world out there. You have a purpose. Go and find it. Yeah, I think it's definitely that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that most kids leaving school, have no idea what they want to do. There's a lot of pressure on them to decide what they want to do, and I would just say, just don't worry about it. Go and do what you want to do. I've changed careers, I think six times in my life, 6 or 7 times, just pivoting and just doing different things. That's finished. I'll go and try this now. So I don't worry about it too much. I just, what I call, follow the breadcrumbs, because everything that I've done actually in all the different careers that I've had and the industries I've worked in, pretty much the same. It's all been service to people. But it's all led me, and it's all been experienced to be where I am today, as we are pioneers, right? Because we are taking the steps and leading by example. And you are a pioneer, Synthia, leading by example. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Thanks. Thanks for listening today. If you would like to join me in telling your story about how you are quietly quitting your career and how you've got one foot out of the 9-to-5 rat race, or if you are a woman who has a story about already leaving the professional world to follow your passion and can offer inspiring advice, then please message me to get yourself booked in on an episode just for you. If you have a question for me or would like to know more information about how I can support you in one of my passion programs, please message me on Instagram, Facebook, or visit my website. You can also grab your free copy of my workbook, Your passion journey starts here by joining my online community. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy this podcast and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Beth Taylor at the Passionate Pioneer Podcast, signing off.